Hey everyone, welcome back to Coffee and UFOs. A very special guest with me, Ben Hansen. He is a UFO investigator. He has worked for several private and public agencies, including investigating child sex crimes and severe physical abuse on the Utah County Sex Crimes Task Force. His training and work later brought him to work in the position of special agent for the FBI. Ben has been seen on documentaries and series on networks such as the Smithsonian's Destination America, CW, and several appearances on the Travel Channel. Ben Hansen, welcome to Coffee and UFOs. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Alan. Doing good. Yeah,
Fant-
we what through technical difficulties with the reception stuttering, so hopefully this works out. But thanks
Yeah,
for having me on.
yeah, no, thanks for coming on. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit better than the previous attempt for sure. Quick question for you: Are you a coffee drinker?
I'm not. I
Really?
do
Okay.
drink caffeine occasionally, yeah, but Mountain Dew's my uh
Regular Mountain Dew, not diet.
no
Reg-
diet, and it's got the aspartame in it, or that supposedly they use for
Yeah.
embalming people. I don't know.
I don't know. Do you remember Mellow
Bad for it.
Yellow? The drink Mellow Yellow, I think it was called. It was like the
It,
cheaper Mountain Dew.
exactly.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's healthy or if that's around, but
that's the one I used
I,
to like when
I
I was a
try
kid.
to just to drink a little bit every day and not
Hmm.
you need it, but like you get sleep and sometimes you're not an interesting person unless you have some.
Yeah, well, I'm less interesting about my coffee. That's for darn sure. And two of my favorite things, obviously, are coffee and UFOs. Something that we both care about. You do this full time, researching, producing television shows, investigating. Very briefly, what is it about the UFO enigma that continues to draw you to pursue the investigatory um, pursuit that you take?
Well, is that like I really got into it when I was probably like 8 years old. That's when I started like reading book, cutting out newspaper clippings, and I thought it was just a childhood thing. I move on to other stuff. And I did. I kind of put it away for a bit. Until I was 14, it kind of came back into my life,
Hmm.
put it away. And then I was in college and I had my first sighting and I was really interested again. So it's kind of like it's the subject that keeps coming back around, no matter what
Yep.
you try to do. Um, Even if I tried to escape it. It's like either, a TV show or, news network or somebody talk about it. And, I haven't even written it yet,
Hmm.
but I think well, I never expected, I think, to be in this place where we're at,
Yeah.
and having a lot of mainstream acceptance. So it's kind of cool to have that knowledge now and people, want to know.
Yeah. I remember there was a case last year that you were working on. It was off, I think, off the Catalina Island area. You had a pilot who had seen a close-up UFO. He tried to capture it with his cell phone camera. Um, but he couldn't quite capture what he saw with his own eyes. Did you have any updates on that case at all? Do we know were there other pilots that recorded video?
So yeah, I did that one, the racetrack UFOs or UAPs.
Hmm.
That was what, 2022? I want to say, was it 2022? And it went viral. The Today Show picked it up, and I was getting dozens and dozens of pilots actually that had made reports either just directly or
Hmm.
came to us of this phenomena. When we first started reporting, we considered many options and thought, okay, you go through the regular stuff, drones, meteors, all these things instantly we could eliminate just based on speed and distance and all that. But the satellite theory we explored even further because we'd seen satellites like this. And
Hmm.
I feel pretty confident now that a lot of those, I'd say maybe 95%, are explained by a unique orbit of Starlink satellites.
Hmm.
However, I say that there's a lot of these outliers where they don't fit,
Hmm.
this explanation. Some are seen in conjunction with these other lights,
Yeah.
and some of them are completely different. It's a big error for people to lump this all into one thing and say, oh, what we're seeing is just satellites. No, we've seen Starlink look like it goes in one direction and goes back the other way.
Mhm.
And it looks like they're looping because in now these polar orbits, and they get down and then get super bright as they're flaring, and the sun's catching this really weird angle.
Hmm.
SpaceX has never told us anything. No one's ever come out officially. It's not come out with statements.
Yeah.
So behind this, actually educating them. We're
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
working with agencies, to let them know this is how pilots are seeing them. I helped publish a paper on it as well. So yeah, it's really interesting.
It's, I think, surprising to a lot of skeptics out there that people who do investigate, myself being a member of MUFON, like you actually have to be skeptical. I mean, I had a recent case where uh, the person obviously really, really believed that they saw a UFO, something very special. Well, when you go, online and you line up where the stars were or the planets were that night, the atmospheric conditions and Jupiter was just like spot on, like right in that spot.
Yeah.
And it was, I think at that was like a three magnitude brilliance, which is pretty bright. It
Mhm.
was 2.5 or 3 at that point, which you can see even through a haze. Um,
Right.
and oftentimes critics come after investigators and say we just believe in whatever, and it's really not the case. So I'm curious, is there a singular incident or a collective approach, a familiar approach that you have dealt with when dealing with skeptics? Have they come up to you and said something that you just think is ridiculous, um, but they are still successful at convincing the public?
Oh, absolutely. It happened all the time. That the real difference, and first of all, I hate the labels because they try to put labels of skeptics and believers, and like you
Right.
said, we should all be skeptical.
Mhm.
And one of the problems is though, you can never win this game because if somebody asks for my true opinion and
Mhm.
they're like, "Hey, I have this video, I have this photo, what do you think it is?" Sometimes I just get a gut feeling. I have to preface a disclaimer by saying, do you really want my opinion? Because if you don't, you're going to be mad. I don't want to share it. And I don't really want to know. I'm like, okay. So, it could be the International Space Station. I can prove to, where it
Yeah.
was or whatever. And they get ticked off. You're right. Oh, you're
Mhm.
this, you're a shill for the government and rah, rah. And I'm like, look, nobody paid to do this. If it's not a TV show, it's my I'm taking. And so same thing with MUFON and those who volunteer their time. It's really disheartening. But on the other hand, the skeptics, so what, or I more like debunkers.
Debunker. Yeah.
The real difference here is I don't care where this ends up. I'm not invested in it. If I get a great story, some good video from a pilot, do I want anomalous? I think it'd be
Mhm.
really cool, if there's things to explain, but I'm not invested in it being anomalous,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I'm just as invested in finding natural explanation so that we can put that in our Rolodex and say, okay, well, when that comes up again, it's similar to this and what
Mhm.
these look like, right? But a so-called skeptic, um, when they come out, the difference is, and I won't name names here, but put stuff out there, I I I put a video together and we explore every option and I say it's possible, probability, the
Mhm.
likelihood. That's what science is.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
Yeah.
likelihood because supporting evidence that it's more this or that.
Hmm.
But when these others come out, they say definitely solved. Oh, absolutely, we did it. We solved it. We did this, and there's still that possibility it's not what you say.
Hmm.
And you can never bring a case to them where they never say I don't know. And that really ticks me off. The people that I'm dealing with, at least, they never out and say, you know what? That's puzzling. I'm not sure. And
Hmm.
and that too is not being objective. you don't have enough information, then don't come out and tell me it's definitely something just so ridiculous, that it's laughable, because that hurts your credibility in science.
Right. And there's a lot of ways in which I think skeptics are justified in criticizing. So it's like if you investigate something and you come to a dead end, you can't explain it, and you think it's mysterious, and you just go, well, it must have been an ET. That's the wrong idea, too. You
Right.
can't just, jump a measurement just because you don't understand how to measure this deficit of information. But on that same coin, you can flip it around. Like, I'm getting very much into lately the simulation hypothesis. I don't know if you've spent much
Mhm.
time thinking about that. But if you have the simulation hypothesis, which means we're basically living in some sort of matrix, and I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that we could be living in something akin to that. Um, it becomes the God in the machine excuse, And so anytime something weird happens, you can say, well, we're in a simulation, so anything's possible. It could just be rendered
Exactly.
at any time, right?
It's like
But
the
then
default explanation.
yeah, but there are UFO cases which are strange, where, a UFO just kind of manifests, AKA renders in front of people, or um, people have these onboard experiences that they often consider more like something that happened psychically rather than an actual physical event. And I think these are tantalizing evidences of, perhaps a simulation. What do you think? Do you think that that's something that could be going on?
Well, kind of practicing what I preach here, I think when people approach it the way of the hypothesis, it's speculation.
Hmm.
Just the opposite. Someone could turn around and say, well, there's other theories such as, the studying of quantum physics and wormholes, how
Hmm.
things could maybe mean it needs to be a simulation. So personally, I feel like get into that territory. It's fun to speculate, but
Hmm.
there's no more real evidence that I can say that your theory is wrong, mine is right.
Hmm.
In that it's almost like you have different ways of knowing things, right? Besides having
Hmm.
the physical part of it, because we're only now getting into proving aspects of quantum physics, of the non-locality,
Right.
of electrons and particles. And so that could possibly explain how things could be in two places, and not necessarily a
Hmm.
glitch, an error in the system.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's fun, but does it get us anywhere really into, trying to
True.
communicate with things, or, figuring out if they're a threat? I don't know.
Hmm.
I tend to focus more on the nuts and bolts of like what we can dive and maybe do something about.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. So in the long run, investigating that like a science, it might lead to something, very important. But in the interim, it's, yeah, are they a threat? Like, what are they doing here? And since we don't know what they are, we need to try to, work on that part of the formula, something that we can actually grasp and start working on. Um, I think
Yeah.
that there's multiple prongs, to investigating UFOs. Um, so I'm guessing then have you not done psychedelics before?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. Because
I
you
mean,
probably would
I
be
come
more
from a background
inclined.
in law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah. I
Law
was gonna say,
enforcement. I mean, to be honest, I've never done any drugs in my whole
oh, really?
and
Okay.
still day. So, not
Good for
not
you. Yeah.
recreationally. I mean, I have my pain pills if it's
Right. Right.
something,
After the dentist.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that aspect I'm pretty boring to people, because like they're like, oh, you haven't expanded your mind. It's like I've seen people's minds expanded and blown, and lives ruined, and I'll leave that
Yeah.
up to them. I do think it's interesting though that like especially the legal, condone scientific university research being allowed to be done on this stuff,
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
people, I think I know where you're going with Rogan, and people having these similar experiences. It's
Hmm.
something to be studied for sure. Is it that people, it can't be on the public zeitgeist and
Hmm.
just Well, it's because aliens and these things are out there that people are having the same sorts of scenarios and experience and trips. So maybe there is something to say that it activates parts of our brains.
Hmm.
It's that I'm open to the idea that kind of things that would allow, I guess you could call them psychic ESP abilities through drugs to simulate
Hmm.
or unlock or do whatever it needs to alter. So that is all interesting. I just kind of leave it up to other people. I don't need to for experience it, I think.
Yeah, and not everybody can investigate every. I'm sorry about that. Wow, my apologies, everyone. Uh,
Oh, no
you know,
worries.
people have different avenues that they investigate, and I think that's great, right? Like, so for you, what do you think is the most important aspect of studying ufology that we need to do more of?
That's a great question. Seems like when people get into this, they all find their own little niche. Some of them are about preserving historical, which I think is really important because we're people from, Roswell, the days way back that there's very few left. The story held, the people who were threatened,
Hmm.
that kept quiet because they were worried about their lives or livelihoods, and that needs to be recorded definitely.
Hmm.
Um, People who are on the political policy making side and trying to get disclosure now.
Yeah.
And then the science part of it. I kind of have my feet in a lot of worlds here, but I don't see myself as just say like necessarily an advocate activist. I don't
Hmm.
see myself as an activist saying we have to have disclosure and we have to have it way because of research that I did recently years ago at Georgetown, and my paper that I was writing was about what I called reality compromising events. So my industry there is crisis management, disasters and emergencies. Applied it specifically to something such as disclosure of extraterrestrial life.
Right.
And there's a lot of and a lot of people are like want to take one side. Oh, we can handle, nothing will happen. We're fine. And then the other, like, oh no, there'd be mass panic. Why strong opinions without any base of maybe or empirical evidence to support why they
Hmm.
feel that way. It's just like opinion. Well, people will be fine. And I need kind of my thing right now is social impacts because we're heading there quick. No matter what we learn in the next few years from Congress or whistleblowers, we're heading to a point where it'll be a threshold met, a tipping point
Right.
that could cause devastating consequences if done too quickly, too soon, without enough planning,
Like
right?
hitting
And
critical
so
mass
for
without a
me, it's more
plan.
of a yeah, exactly. And if they are doing it, they're not officially doing it. Makes sense because I've
Mhm.
talked to the people who should be in the know. There's no official plan.
Right.
There are think tank group. There are people, kind of working it out, but eventually, if they're going to implement it, they need to let the agencies know that this is, a real possibility. And that part is really fascinating to me. The scientific part, yeah, of course, that too. But how is our world going to be different? If like 5 or 10 years down the road, we have that disclosure, we have that evidence, and now the visitors are open with us, and we're you know, doing exchanges of commerce and culture and everything else. Like you can't even fathom how that's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me that's fascinating because it'll be the biggest, uh, thing in human our lifetimes, obviously. But for thousands of years, and how's that going to look? So it's game changing, and a lot of people just don't even think about it, because to them doorstep dilemma. It's like a war. or a disaster in another country, you're interested for a few days, maybe a few weeks, like, oh, that's
Hmm.
horrible, that's devastating, or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
until it's on your doorstep, it doesn't priority. And people have to rightly make money to pay bills. So until they're able to kind of think about it in a more provocative way about what are we going to do, it's not going to go anywhere.
And well, then it's not unlike investigating the trying to figure out the origin of the nature of reality, or where they come from. That's less important than what are we dealing with here and now. And and so if you're, just a regular citizen, you might be interested in, oh, what are aliens coming here? But you still, like, you're right, you still have to get about your life and do things. But I do think that if there was a large enough citizens, movement, for lack of a better word, pressure from the constituents to get some real action regard to disclosure, then I think it could happen. Um, and there's multiple ways to do that. Entertainment in many ways, like what you do. Um, there are books. There's political activists, investigators, and collectively, it appears to me that we're moving in that general direction. But then you have something like the Arrow Historical Report, and I was just blown away by, for I can't think of any other word but inept. It was, uh, it was not, it was insulting, and not just to people who know the subject. Um, Anyone who would read any kind of government report out of curiosity is going to go, it's full of factual inaccuracies. The form it was formulated in a way that it felt like something someone put together their sophomore year of college. I was really insulted by that, and I have to wonder, do you think that, someone like, and I know we don't want to call people out in particular, because we don't always know what's going on behind the scenes, so we don't want to be overly critical. So, balance. But did Sean Patrick, do you think, willingly, knowingly put that out with its inaccuracies, its con I would say confabulated conclusions, inaccurate conclusions, and if so, would he have done so knowingly as an agent of the government with an agenda, or is this something that, like, this guy just doesn't care and he wants to move on?
I don't know. I mean, I know people have had meetings with him, and
Hmm.
uh, first of all, I think it was a mistake to. They're between a rock and a hard place, right? I mean, they don't have a large staff. The budgets and everything, I think they probably
Hmm.
have, I'm just getting, I've been told, maybe about 30 personnel, 30 research and stuff now.
Right.
But the government is not best to do any type of report. When people aren't there, usually because of a passion,
Hmm.
they're like academics who love this subject and they're going to put this effort. They're assigned, right? They're assigned this task, this unit lent
Hmm.
from other agencies and departments, and it's this hodgepodge of people thrown in together. Congress is putting a lot of pressure. So, like you said, I think there's that benefit, that there's that nudge. Hey, got it. You got to work. You must provide us this information. You must this. You must do that.
Hmm.
But if I had to guess, I would honestly say that the frontline people, okay, the spokespeople for the DoD, and I'd even dare say Kirkpatrick and higher up, who are the heads of Arrow and these agents, may not be in the know. And it doesn't um,
So if they're not in
what
the know,
clearances give.
if, oh, sorry, Ben, if they're not in the know and they're looking for answers, it doesn't seem to me like that they tried very hard.
It, it could be partly that. I think there's evidence of that where, like they come up short, they didn't use their subpoena power or things like that to
Hmm.
report back to Congress, because maybe here's the error, and I think why it's a mistake is you're basically, and people put it in these terms exactly too. I don't know if it was Birchhead or whoever, but
Hmm.
you're asking the folks to investigate the hen house, right? So
Right. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the bosses are still the DoD.
Yep.
And that's why they try to remove them and put them under, I can't remember what now they're not under uh gosh, I'm blanking at the moment. But they're still under DoD.
Mhm.
It's DoD, right? And so for them to say, hey, we came out with a report that yeah, the government may have been lying and may have had a secret retrieval program because we have, X, Y, and Z whistleblowers and half a dozen of these people
Mhm.
who presented can testimony that they were there.
Yeah.
Instead of saying we have, which they did, they said no of us, which I think is wrong
Mhm.
because we know people who have gone before them. They could say the probability is unlikely or whatever their conclusion is, but come out and say there's no supporting evidence is just not true because it was um, provided from what we understand. So I guess the thing is, I don't know about Kirkpatrick. I don't know about his reasons, but once these people, a lot of times, like look at Jay Stratton, who was quiet about his efforts there until he left. Once they leave, you know, they become a little bit more free to talk about things and how they were
Sure.
displeased with how it was being run. And I think we'll see more of that because you still have people like Jeremy Corbell talking directly to staff members of Arrow who are leaking stuff to him.
Mhm.
Whether that's right or not, they're at least sharing their sentiments that it's a mess over here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's all my opinion. We would like to help Arrow, and I've got resources, that we'd like to help them get the job done, because it's kind of unfair them who are not a science group
Mhm.
to come out and, like you said, produce what turned out to be sort of a book report with inaccuracies because they're not looked at history, they're not historians,
Mhm.
they're not primarily. They don't. Most of them are, science degree professors,
Mhm.
people who can actually, the data from the evidence they do have. So a lot of things that need improvement, but I think at the end of the day, positive move forward. I do think that at least talking about it and the fact that the reaction from a lot of the media wasn't isn't right here.
Yeah.
You can't just write off that we don't have as high expectation for part two, which I think is well overdue now. It's supposed to happen in June or something.
Yeah.
So
But when they had that press call before the release of the Arrow report, and only limited members of the press came in, that just sent the message that they're teeing up the media and the public reception to a preordained narrative, rather than just being open. Like, here's the thing, boom, let's have questions, open it up. That's not the case.
sure.
They kind of put out a narrative first, but I at the same time, I'm with you. I think that every time we move forward, we're moving forward. Like every time a little
Yeah.
more piece of information comes out, we're making progress. And I think it's very exciting. And with all this going on, we've had, outcroppings of investigative bodies like Soul, the Galileo Project. I know recently in the past months we've had increased numbers of people signing up for MUFON. There are many more people who really want to just participate and do something about this. Is there one case, let's just say hypothetically, if there's one, is there one case that you think if we could crack that UFO case, just that one, that it would be the little snowball that starts the avalanche? Would it be the case that exposes everything?
Uh, just finishing your thought there about, like what the private and organizations are doing. I think it's great work, and I
Mhm.
will say in aerospace they have reached out to a lot of those private organizations now and are looking to ways to help higher ups at the very top care
Mhm.
about this and want to, quelched or not, I know. But at least those who are in charge now of Vero, I do believe, are making a very honest effort to carry out their mission.
Mhm.
And because they are looking to the groups and not just, staying within their own circles. Um, your other question. Hold on one sec.
Is that
Excuse
Mountain
me.
Dew? Is that a
Yeah.
jug of Mountain Dew? And you're on Island Time. That's awesome. I love it.
Some days, some days it's Mountain Dew.
Mhm.
So one particular case, I know it's kind of cliche, but if
Mhm.
we honestly could solve something like Roswell,
Mhm.
which had hundreds of witnesses who would tell you're still alive and they're on record, they came face to face,
Mhm.
with not only materials, but with entities that were not human.
Mhm.
And one in particular was Mark Magruder, he was known as, and his son Mark Magruder, I've interviewed and is a friend of mine. Before he went to, on his death, before he passed, he told his sons about going to Roswell, or sorry, not Roswell, the Air War College at Wright-Patterson Air Base, which was the spring after Roswell. And they brought in a lot of officers from World War II to gather them together and ask opinion on the problem,
Mhm.
they called it, and material. And he saw at least two bodies. One of them was still alive.
Mhm.
You think about these stories and they lie to their own children on their deathbed. Like, haha, my final joke is I'm going to tell you that there's
Right.
alien that
Yeah.
dad saw him, and then die. And it's those things to me that are very compelling. Even though we may not physically be able to say have that memory metal
Mhm.
in our hands stored somewhere,
Yeah.
or the biological issue. That stuff is important, but just like everything else, if we had it, um, you're going to get the same amount of debunkers and people come out, or conspiracy theorists who say it's
Mm.
absolutely not even real.
True.
It doesn't exist. So it won't be a smoking gun. I don't know if necessarily even come that way, but I do think that an admission on Roswell that it wasn't the weather balloons, the mogul balloons, it wasn't any of that, that it possibly was something from another world we can't explain. I think a good
Yeah.
starting point. It would be monumental if we had a case like that where the government admitted we didn't have answers, and yes, we recovered some. We still don't know what it is.
Yeah. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I
Yeah,
feel,
thanks for conversation, and I appreciate the patience too. A lot of people have needed to chat, but we're headed to, gosh, some amazing things. I think this year,
Mhm.
in the year, like, if people are disheartened right now that nothing seems to be happening, there's things happening.
Yeah.
There's stuff going on behind the scenes, and you just stay tuned and keep on doing what you're talking to your neighbors and friends. We'll see what happens.
All right. We can leave it at that, unless you have one final thought, something that you feel like needs to be said.
Um, well, I mean, I kind of have my mantra and stuff for people is don't, believe everything here, but don't disbelieve it just because you haven't heard before.
Right.
We're in very strange times, and it's super easy to have an opinion about something just by reading a blurb
Mm.
or having a friend or a podcast tell you one little thing. Unless you research it yourself and you're not informed from all angles of it, then I'd say reserve your opinion, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all still learning and nobody has all the answers. It's really important that we are our own research and investigator. These are important issues. And it's just sad that people just take at face value what anyone, official government agency,
Sure.
a debunker, uh, somebody who has wild theories that are that have no basis
Substantiated.
in
Yeah, yeah,
empirical
yeah.
evidence. So yeah, there's a lot of info out there, but do your own research is what I would say and learn.
All right. Yeah. So basically, trust but verify.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, cool. Ben, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a good night. And to everyone tuning in tonight on this pre-recorded episode, thank you so much. If you like Coffee and UFOs and the Mystic Lounge YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All that really matters. It helps the channel grow. And of course, there's the podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can write a review and rate it there as well. Thank you so much. Peace and love. And until next time, I'll see you on the flip side.
It's good to be an earthling. I wish more of us would think of ourselves that way.
And I don't have a problem with skeptics. It's debunkers that are on some other level that I don't understand.
Well, if there's a good thing.
Essentially an inference of a change in local gravity.
Saucer-shaped craft, and they're hovering over the water.
Blue Book Special Report 14. The better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be unexplainable.